Right now, though, absolutely thrilled to have with us on the program tonight the host of Bizarre Foods America, Mr. Andrew Zimmern. How you doing, Mr. Zimmern?
I'm good. How are you tonight?
I am great. Thanks so much for coming on the program.
My pleasure.
You know, we talk mostly about Second Amendment issues here on this program, but as I said earlier in the show, there's a developing nexus, I think, between food freedom and firearm freedom. And, you know, we're seeing a real issue of food freedom on display in California right now, where a first-in-the-nation ban on foie gras is getting ready to go into effect. Chicago tried to ban foie gras a couple of years ago, but this would be statewide in California, going into effect on July the 1st. And you are among several folks in California or in the industry who are trying to get this ban rescinded.
Well, I'm opposed to it on so many levels. I don't even know where to begin. And oftentimes politics makes strange bedfellows. I'm an avid outdoorsman and a hunter. I'm not obsessed with Second Amendment issues. I'm less concerned about food freedom or firearm freedom. I'm more concerned about freedom where approachable. I'm not an advocate of the nanny state, but I do believe that government and governments have their role in protecting the public health. Where I differ from the upcoming foie gras ban, that, by the way, it also influences production as well, so it's an economic sustainability issue in terms of hampering the freedom to do business in the state of California, not just in terms of consumption. They're going about it two ways. Obviously, the sale of fattened or engorged animal livers is something that for lotus eaters, those of us who consume for pleasure, are absolutely stirred up about. But on that merit alone, you can't make a compelling argument. Where I think the argument comes in very niftily, where I think all Americans should be on board with this, is that at a time in our nation's history where our food systems are so horribly compromised, where 40% of our country is working poor, where there are children going to bed hungry at night, where commodity and factory farms are absolutely destroying the health and wellness of the American population, to spend one penny of our tax dollars to deal with a ban on a product that 1/100th of the population even knows what it is or gets to try.
Right.
It's a very expensive, very niche product that also was, I will be the first to admit, when the Egyptians were force-feeding ducks and geese thousands of years ago, you could make an argument that was cruel and inhumane. These days, I'm not sure that you can make the same argument. And if we start to legislate the welfare of animals to the degree that this law contemplates, well, we might as well outlaw eating vegetables too, because there are brilliant studies right now coming out of universities all over the world about plants' ability to communicate with each other and essentially think. So I just think it's very dangerous ground. As a civil libertarian, I'm against it. As a foodie, I'm against it. As a citizen, I'm against it. I think it's a waste of time and money, and our attention is better spent fixing the other food problems, like juvenile diabetes. That are, let's spend money trying to get, sugary sodas out of schools and flavored milks out of the public school system. Why we're dealing with foie gras, I can't even fathom.
I think I would even disagree with you about the sugary drinks in our schools as a father of five, but I certainly agree with you that this is, as you say, it's not an issue for people other than, I suppose, the animal rights activists, which is where this is really coming from, right?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure where it's coming from. I think that there are small groups of people who are ignorant and are interested in seeing anything that smacks of animal abuse legislated against. And I think we really have some politicians in the state of California who are afraid to stand up to anyone and speak their minds. I'm not really sure how any smart-thinking person could think that we need to be legislating the force feeding of ducks and geese for the production of their livers. It's such a niche ingredient when the travesties that are being wreaked on the American people in other parts of the food system that desperately need our attention.
Right.
You know, again, I started out by saying I'm an avid outdoorsman, and it was the reason why I was inclined to come on. I've caught your program before.
Oh, cool.
You know, on the way out to the duck camp and stuff. And
right.
that, you know, we all have so much in common when it comes to putting real food on the tables of Americans and opening people's eyes up to alternative proteins. I'd rather see even the government in a positive way put dollars towards educating people about the conservatorship and the guardianship of our forests and fields and our lakes, streams, and rivers and oceans that outdoorsmen have taken upon themselves. The private sector stepping in. I'm just, it just gets me so upset, this whole foie gras thing. And people can go to at Save Foie Gras on Twitter and find out more about it. I think it's savefoiegras.com. A simple Google check will put you in touch with any of the authorities to stick your name on a list. I'm just, you know, if again, and I'm sure this is a familiar ode to regular listeners of your program, if you can take away my foie gras, what's next?
Well, exactly right. You know, that's exactly right, Andrew, because ultimately the argument comes down to there was an article, I think it was in the L.A. Times about this, and they quoted David Kinch, the chef at Manresa, and he said, Manresa, he said, they imagine a tube being shoved down the duck's human throat. He said, you know, they tend to think of these ducks as little itty-bitty humans. And they're not, and that really is where their argument rests, is that this is cruelty somehow. When I've seen video of a foie gras farm, a production facility in New York, where the ducks are waddling up to be fed. They're not afraid to be fed.
No, they're not. And let's assume just for 1 second that that these animals, let's assume that argument has any merit at all. Then where do you stop? We're going to have to then make a much deeper and moral and philosophical understanding about where our food comes from. And I don't think the majority of people who are making this argument would sit for that. The extreme edges of this fringe movement that would like to see this product banned may never be convinced otherwise. But I think that there are a lot of smart thinking people who have mistakenly placed this into other environmental and animal rights concerns where it absolutely does not belong, because the system of fattening these animals called gavage has changed so much. The technology that we have now, it's people should go to a farm. I mean, cows aren't milked by hand anymore. The cows merrily walk up. They're relieved of the burden of carrying their milk by gentle machines. And I'm not going to make too strong a parallel between that and gavage. But these animals do, in fact, I don't believe that they live in constant fear of the food tube. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right about that. Now, from a practical standpoint, if this ban stands in California, what does it mean for the foie gras industry around the rest of the country?
Well, this is a very interesting thing. I mean, the the production in California will cease. In Chicago, the reason that the law flipped around, I think it only lasted about 2.5 or 3 years, is that the law essentially was all bark and no bite. There was no possible way to enforce this. And chefs, instead of calling the fattened goose and duck livers that they were serving foie gras or foie gras, either way you would like to deal with it, started calling it fish food. And, priced it accordingly and let diners make their own judgments. It'll be very interesting to see. I'm not a California restaurateur. I don't live in California.
Right.
I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, but certainly I'm a visible member of the food community. I'll be very interested to see which of the California chefs, because some of them are outraged enough to do it, I believe, will continue to serve it on their menu in defiance of the law, bring it into are they going to, our government isn't searching every package that comes into the state of California to begin with. They're going to start looking for 2 or 3 pounds of duck or goose liver.
Right.
this story is not over yet. And I think much to the state's embarrassment, they're going to look even sillier 2 years from now, 3 years from now, when they repeal this frivolous law from the books. I mean, in light of the other problems, again, regardless of where you sit on the issue of foie gras production, you can't possibly think that we should be spending attention on this tiny little niche product faced with so many other problems in this country. The triage of this by the state of California government is absolutely irresponsible and reckless.
Talking with Andrew Zimmern, host of Bizarre Foods America. Andrew, thank you again for coming on the program, sir. And I got to tell you, we are huge fans of the show at my house. My youngest son, James, is a very adventurous eater based on Bizarre Foods. Hopefully, all right, well, he had to go. That's okay. We really appreciate Andrew coming on the program.